A recent report indicated that majority of the CEO positions are dominated by people from the western part of this country. Now, that sparked a widespread or nationwide debate that the issue or sentiments relating to tribalism rose to that effect. The issue to do with sectarianism, discrimination, among others, rose up to the table that people are discussing and trying to figure out why exactly is the West dominating most CEO positions in this country. So joining me to discuss this wonderful and interesting topic is a panel of university students who will help us contextualize and unpack the conversation. My name is Douglas Onen. I'm your host and moderator for today. So before we begin the conversation, I'll just quickly let my panelists introduce themselves. I wouldn't want to spoil the show because they know themselves better. I do know them, but it would be best if they went ahead and introduced themselves for you to get to know them. So I'm just going to begin right next to my right hand here until my extreme right, so that you get to know them. Then we can start. You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Drake, thank you so much for hosting us this afternoon. I am Beatrice Namukunda, a fourth-year law student in the Uganda Christian University.
Thank you. We're looking forward to having a wonderful discussion with you, Beatrice, and we're very happy to have you here. Gentleman inspects.
The gentleman inspector. Yeah, good evening, afternoon. My name is Jawia, Kenneth Odar. I am also a fourth-year law student at Uganda Christian University. I also double as the 25th Guild Government State Attorney. So, applause.
Thank you. You're most welcome. I'm looking forward to getting your legal insights on this issue as well. The lady has been here a couple of times. She's a woman of many things, but let her go ahead and introduce herself.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Drake. My name is Denise Ayebare. I am an advocate for equality and equity, as well as a law student at Makerere University.
Thank you. You've heard it from her today. Thank you. Let us listen in from Mr. Jimmy Obbo from Kyambogo. I already said the name, but yeah.
Okay. Hi there. My name is Jimmy Obbo. I am a final semester student of English and Literature. I am so honored to be here.
Definitely. So happy to have you as well. So let me just start from there. When you received the conversation, just as a snippet to the conversation, what came into your mind? I just want you to provide us with a roadmap of how you're going to go about this particular conversation.
So these issues are very, very interesting. When you begin talking about the sharing of resources in the country, it may get a little subjective if you're not careful, and you lose the objective part of it. But I think when this report was released and it went all over the media, it was on the Daily Monitor 9. I think it stems back to the difference in the quality of education and the economic terms that play in as well there. But also stems back to the sort of, there are no policy frameworks to shape the process of recruiting people into service. And institutions are generally dead as well. Institutions are dead, and all these things play in and affect people in regards to their well-being. I was reading that report deeper, and regions like Sebei and Karamoja are the worst performing in regards to the CEO things and representations, and generally in job opportunities within the country.
Yeah.
But when you look at them, you also look at the education system. Sebei College no longer produces very many citizens, good grades, and push them to the university. Karamoja used to have Moroto High, and the schools no longer do well as well. So the quality of education motivates and drives this particular thing. But I also think that there's a great influence by the executive, and he plays a long path here in this particular whole debate, because the executive is the appointing authority in most of the CEO jobs. The president signs on these contracts. And there was that particular controversy last time when we had the airlines and everything. And President Museveni came out and said that job is already given out. So you guys actually wasting time to your appointing. So institutions are dead. There is no clear policy framework in regards to the appointment. And the quality of, there's an indifference in the quality of education that we are getting. People from the West, it's true, these people can take their children to the university. They can afford to have their children in the university. That's why when you go to halls, probably at Makerere, you go to Lumumba, you go to Kyambogo, those halls of residence, and ask the custodians, give me the list of students. Probably in the early 70s, you'd see random names of students. You'd see Okech, you'd see Ayebare, you'd see Komakech, you'd see Alokite. So there was regional balance. You'd see Kabagambe. But now, you go to those halls of residence and the names are almost sort of similar because they have the resources to take their children to the university. But I think people should not underplay the fact that this particular report does not mean that everyone from the West is actually doing well. The poverty landscape affects each Ugandan almost. There's only a few people probably from the West that are actually part of this game. So I don't want people to misplace this and think that everyone from the West is actually benefiting.
All right.
The people from the West that actually also need help.
Interesting.
Yeah.
In the conversation, definitely we are going to look into the differences in the quality of education. A point that you raised, we're going to go ahead and investigate into the what you call no policies in place to help check the recruitment in various institutions of parastatals. We shall also look at the influence of the executive in terms, or as the highest appointing body in this country. But last but not least, what you mentioned, something to do with economic disparities, which I think we shall delve right into it. But quickly, I also want to get your minds on this, Denise, before we delve into the nitty-gritties of tonight's conversation. What comes into your mind?
Well, looking at how CEOs are in the bigger positions, all coming from one region, specifically talks about how policies, how frameworks within institutions are, like what Jimmy says. But then you go ahead and look at the kind of tribalism that then we have in the country. Necessarily when you study in Mbara High School or Ntari School, and you just go to an office and you find your OB there, you're likely to get that job as compared to someone else. Why is that true? Because these individuals have a tendency of even relating to each other like in a better position because probably we come from the same background, right? But then too, when you go ahead and look at how we have had how individuals in certain places are not being held accountable, no one is going to hold the executive accountable for who they have recruited or the HR or anything. The kind of policies that then you find become very detrimental in that particular paradigm. And we think that then there needs to be questioning about who is responsible, what are the accountability mechanisms that have been put in place, which are largely lacking in these institutions due to the systemic breakdown that Jimmy talks about. Yeah.
Perfect. Shall definitely look into the policy framework that you mentioned. We shall look into the tribalism, but also the aspect of who is controlling Uganda. Who is holding who accountable? Jawia, what
Yes,
comes into your mind in this conversation?
So, my point of view, ideally, when you ask the question of who is controlling Uganda, and I don't think we should always look at it from a tribalistic point of view. No. When you ask the question of who is controlling Uganda, I think you have to ask yourself the question of who is in control of the flow of remuneration or income. Because my point of view is that human beings are driven by what gives them the form of pleasure. So no one wants to be in pain. So if anything that brings pain to you is at your back, definitely you're going to run to something that's going to give you pleasure. So remuneration, money. Who controls the money? How does the flow? How does it intertwine with different people and how their relation to it?
But on that issue, you see the money is controlled by still the same region because they're in the top
Now that's the thing.
position.
That's the thing. So when you're asking yourself that question is, okay, who controls the money? Because the person who controls the money is the person who controls the way people think and act and relate. Because I have a friend who told me, even my mother, when it comes to money, I become a completely different individual.
Okay.
So human beings are somewhat gullible. That's what I would say.
The argument that you're going to focus on is the aspect of the person who controls the money.
The flow.
Capitalism entirely.
Exactly.
But fine, let's listen in from Beatrice. When you got this conversation, what came into your mind?
A limitation.
Uh-huh.
Because you're talking about CEOs being represented by a group of people, so that means there's a limitation to another group of people. So, which I feel like has been facilitated by the factors people have been pointing out: the economy, the background, the intellectual market that people are, buying from ideas and selling them to. So I think that is what we're going to look at: these factors that are facilitating this limitation.
Okay, it's going to be an interesting conversation. I think I may actually get dissenting views in the conversation, but let's start it right away. Denise, I want to start with you. Historically, we have it that we have seen various governments. Let me particularly point a government where we saw almost, you mentioned that you are an advocate for equality. In a government where we almost had an equitable regime is the government of Obote during the UPC regime. And during the UPC regime, what then happened is one, we had quality and equitable access to education in all regions. In that government, you would study from northern Uganda from St. Joe's College Laibi and still be among the best students. You would study in Nagongera in Tororo and still be a what? A good student.
Okay.
You would study from Ombachi in Arua and still be a good student. You would study from Chapa or Ntare in Western Uganda and be a good, and you study from Central, be a good student. But we've reached a point whereby it has been concentrated in one area, but even the concentration in one area, there's a seed or there's a quality that needs to be followed. But let us just start from that historical perspective in terms of government appointments, education, among others. So let us start the conversation from one, stemming from history, and then bringing it out to education, which will then best inform our conversation today.
Yeah. Well, whereas even we talk about Obote's government being one of the best that Uganda has actually ever experienced, I think even Amin felt otherwise. The Kakwi felt they were not represented in the government, and hence probably the coup that took him out during the 1971 Ugandan coup. But then going to that, you notice that right from 1971 when Obote was overthrown, what then happened was the kind of the political instabilities that Uganda sort of experienced. So even when we are talking about Obote's government, we need to also notice that between 1971 and 1985, there are various factors that could have facilitated the kind of politics or could have shaped the kind of regime that came in 1986. One of those factors, I think when President Museveni came into power at that time, he actually had one of the best brilliant ideas. And I think when you look at the ideas or the policies that Uganda makes even at a global level, right from education to things like gender inequality to things like economic policies, they are always the best on paper. Why is that true? Because they know that for every policy passed, you're going to get 500,000 USD. So the policies Uganda makes are very very perfect, that you cannot even say that we are going not to give you money for this grant or any other policy. But then the problem comes with implementation, and that is to something you talk about. When you look at all the institutions, the government structures, the parastatals, for far too long have been controlled by people from one region. And what then that does, like we have been talking about, if you have the ability to access something someone doesn't have, it puts you in a place of privilege. You're able to access things like resources. You're able to access things like networks. You're able to access things like mentorships. So necessarily, the inequality that then exists in the kind of resources we access, or even in the kind of privileges we then do have, shape us for the positions that then are there. So an example is that of recent, all the schools you're going to find, if they're not in Central, the very best schools, they're all tending towards the West. Maryhill, Bweranyanji, Ntare, Chapa, all those schools, unless you have the other G7 schools in the Central, as compared to what used to happen. Even the roads you look at right now that are the very best roads, they're still from Obote's regime. The hospitals, when you're moving kind of the hospitals that are coming up, they're all still from Obote's regime. What then does that mean? Our government has become reluctant to sort of put their infrastructures that are going to be accessible to each and every Ugandan or each individual. It doesn't only stem from things like education. You're going to find that the level of education individuals have gives them the ability to self-actualize and achieve fulfillment in society. And if they're not able to have that, why is that true? Because in terms of resources, you cannot access basic needs. You cannot access health services. Your children are going to continuously be marginalized. So the kind of minorities we create even in the education system tend from the lack of governments to install infrastructures that benefit all Ugandans at an equitable level. And that is right from how we have done with the RDCs. You're seeing RDCs of recent, all of them also come from one region. And why is that true? Because the level of education, the access of education they have tends to be better. That is going to give you things like better mentorship, better access to resources, to be able to afford anything you want, to become a better person that any HR or any company would take. So I think the problem stems right from the level of education or the infrastructures that then we inherited, right, and how we handled those infrastructures until now.
Perfect. Jimmy,
Yes.
when I listen to the submissions of Denise, what comes into my mind is at times privilege. Yeah, first thing, privilege, and the people who are privileged are the ones who have power, and with power, definitely you have the ability or the potential to have the resources at your behest, right? Now, still the conversation is going to rotate around education and training. You are a teacher trainee at the moment. You're going through the ranks of becoming a teacher in this institution. And I believe your ambitions are possibly to teach in one of these big schools in this country. And one of those big schools are either found here in central Uganda or in western Uganda. Unfortunately, I started in northern Uganda, but now my school is no longer on the map. Now, the question is, we have most of our population in this country is rurally based. Not everyone stays in the central area or in the urban centers, and means that if our population is rurally based, that means people who go to schools go to the rural school, and they will get the basic education that there is, and at the end of the day, will not have the capacity to become the CEO of this parastatal. Hence, vicious cycle of the same region taking on these CEO positions. Speak to the issue of education and training.
I'll go back to what Denise said. I like when she was contrasting herself. She first of all claimed it's not education, then as she was concretely said it's education. But when you speak about education generally, I think this government had a very smart move. I like the smartness they used. One, they told Ugandans, we are going to give you free education for primary and secondary through UPE and then USE. So Ugandans were blinded. And so you study for 6 years, then boom, you cannot afford university education. Then the people that have the resources will take their children to the universities. But still, you look at the quality of the education that people that are wealthy attain. They go to the most affluent schools, they go to Suvi, they go to Budo, they go to the best schools in the country. And the confidence they have, the intellect they get in those particular schools is not the same as a child in Toro going to one of the USE schools there. So I think the target on education generally determines everything. Drake, if Civic Space was to make an advertisement and say, we need a presenter for this show, trust me, the best candidates are going to be from the West. Because they have the resources, they might have probably flown out of the country and gotten papers and everything. So it starts from not generally just the degree or university, but it goes after like degree itself. So they can access PhD programs, master's programs, because they have the resources. But in the end time, you're creating a group of people that are disgruntled, that can easily, it's more of like a time bomb, just sitting on a time. These people are getting disgruntled and they feel betrayed. Another thing is that you may realize that schools within other regions are declining. Lao College is dead. Laibi is dead as well. Busoga College,
I think if you say dead, it's a very
the schools that they no longer produce the classic students of the time. Muri the same story. Bukadi College Kachonga, Nabumali, Manjasi, Kisokwa, all those schools.
I went to the UB College. We are still producing.
those schools are no longer producing the quality they used. People that went to those schools in the 70s will argue the same as me, that the schools are dead. So the education system itself has been crumpled upon. So the introduction of UPE and everything, then when you create UPE and tell people you're going to have free education, then you create a private scheme at the university, and these people are poor. People cannot afford to attain the education. So I think education itself, to have equity in education so that people can compete for these jobs fairly, stems back to having this power of the financial muscle. And the financial muscle has been ruined as well. I'm from probably the poorest of regions in Uganda. Bukadi region is arguably the poorest region in this country. Bukadi region used to pride in having coal, having tobacco, cotton. Cotton was the cash crop there. But that is no longer there. People there are beggars. They have to beg. We have to beg politicians, and they get... In Butaleja, still in that very region, they used to have like swamps, and they would farm rice and get some money. Those rice are now fully owned by Chinese, and those people they go there to weed. So that's the situation that these people are in. So they are literally very poor. They cannot afford an education. So if you're going to have equity in education so that these people can compete for these jobs favorably, you need to have people attain the education, create the economic grounds people can attain this education. And then when they reach these grounds, like if they come and applying for jobs, there's equity. When you go to the universities, as I said, the universities are predominantly occupied by one region. Not because of any sort of tribalism. No, it's because they have the resources they can afford. When you look at people attaining masters and PhDs, they are mostly from one region. People that attain master's degrees and PhDs, those ones real struggle if you're not from that particular side. You struggle, you sell land, you everything, sort of things like that. So it stands back to having people access this education, access the education, and be able to have the economic privilege to attain the education itself. But looking back still to the findings that that they brought out, when they said about 18% is for Kampala Central region, I think those figures are also wrong. Those figures must be lower. I think the 18% must be from the cattle corridor, and still it pushes us back. So I don't know if you realize. So probably the real people from Central Uganda are actually not there. Maybe they're like 5%. And the other numbers. So allow people, give people the economic ability so that they can attain the education, because poverty comes with lack of education. But if people can access education, if they have the economic ability to attain education, it's good. If we can have Toro College produce the best students, like as Barara High, as it was like in the olden times. Lango College is producing, Sebe College is producing, Yakashura is producing, Moragal is producing the same as Nabi Sunsa. Then you have all these particular brains coming through to the university, and they can compete favorably. But if you're making some institutions dead, institutions dead, and people of that particular region cannot afford this particular education, then it all leaves this particular region having more favors in regard to, and leaving the others poor.
All right.
Yeah.
Jawia, in your introduction, you made it very clear, vividly and very succinctly, that you are a state attorney. And being a state attorney, of course, you are familiar with principles relating to non-discrimination and equality. Our constitution provides for such. And our constitution definitely emanates from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Of course, now, on those grounds that we look at principles of non-discrimination, principles of equality, which are core for human beings to survive. The arguments that Denise and my brother Jimmy raise are very core and very fundamental in tonight's conversation. We have a situation whereby you bring access to education, but then later on also introduce private institutions. And one or the other, more like you introduce something private, you give people free education, but then kill the free education by providing poor quality education, but then leave the private and then fund the private properly. Now the people who cannot afford the private, end up going to those public institutions, get basic education that can't push them further. And now at the end of the day, when it comes to the job market, you only take the people definitely who are top-notch and core and are good. Now, relating it to the principles of equality and non-discrimination, don't you think we are getting it wrong as a country?
Well, when it comes to getting it wrong as a country, yeah, I could agree with it to some extent. Because, as she said, there's an education aspect we have to look at. And as he said, there is the point of who is going to fund whose education, you get. Now, where I would contrast with you, partly, is the fact that it's not that the government has killed the institutions or anything. What, personally, I think is that the cultures that these institutions were built over have kind of degraded. For example, let me tell you, St. Mary's College Civic. I am a proud OB of St. Mary's College Civic. And this is only because there were some cultures that were enforced there that would support people. I could even name names, but of course, I can't do that now. But there are people who I went to school with, who honestly just went there because he got a 4 in what's his school in Bali called? It's called Nkokonjeru. He got a 4 in Nkokonjeru. He said, I want to go to St. Mary's College. Education system said that, you know what? you've gotten a 4, so you are the best person. You get. They gave him SMAC. He comes to SMAC. He may not be able to fulfill the tuition or that amount of money that you're supposed to pay. But then he comes into a society where there's some sort of brotherhood that is built in you from the very start. Because for us, we had an introduction where they would tell us, your class is your power. As long as there's a heartbeat, there's hope. You get. So you'd always look forward to looking at, okay, fine, this guy has been with me from Form 1 and probably doesn't have money. You'll find yourself talking to your dad and like, yo, this is my guy. You're always sitting with him on VDs, and that's how his dad comes in. And so you find yourself so strong.
Jawia, I'm finding troubles trying to relate this.
Yes, please.
Very, very few people have the intellectual capacity of scoring 4, and everyone wants to attain education.
Yes.
Not everyone can be like that gentleman who wants to score 4. There are people who possibly got a 7, 6, but still want to go to SMART and fail to go to SMART because of financial incapacity.
Yes.
SMART could possibly take, if you get a minimum of, let's say, 8 aggregates or 7.
Yes.
But then, because you didn't score a 4, you cannot access SMART because the tuition is way high. Now, how shall we level the playing field for that Ugandan child who really wants to get the top CEO position at NSSF but cannot because
because you didn't go to. Now that's the thing. That's another thing. You cannot say that SMAC is the only school that is going to. As he said, we had Ombachi 4. That one, as a fact, I can tell you it was a very good school. I have certain older friends who are passionate about Ombachi because they believed that Ombachi could give you knowledge. You come out feeling like I can stand against an Ngonian, a SMACist. You're coming from Ombachi. Let me say you didn't have that breeding that would give you a 4 probably. But you're still going to Ombachi, and Ombachi has given you that hope. Same as not only Ombachi, there are other schools there in West Nile that I can stand for, and you'll be like, yes, surely they could. But then the thing is, the cultures die. You get.
So is it the culture? Is it
Moderator,
really the culture? I feel like
I have a concern.
Sure.
Yes.
So, your argument is that the government has not killed this particular education
I
institution.
don't think the government has killed these institutions.
Thank you. So, what is the government doing to enable those institutions
To revamp.
to revamp?
Now that's the thing. I think it's, again, first of all, in you saying that the government has killed the institutions is wrong. But the correct thing you should say is the government has ignored the institutions. You get? Because fine, the cultures have died, and in the cultures dying, you're supposed to bring up some form of support towards them.
that's a very controversial
Okay.
argument.
But also on that point, for instance, if I have a 6 and the cutoff was 6, but I'm able to pay to still get into a school like Wudo, is it the problem of a me problem of my culture or the government's problem?
Now, yeah, it's okay. Fine. let me answer. No, because you laugh. Then no, the thing is this: we are bringing it from different perspectives.
Yeah,
You get.
definitely.
My perspective was because you first asked the question of where the distinctions are, and I brought you a distinction of someone who has come from Kokonjeru and someone who has come from Homies Darling.
Yeah.
Then you shifted it to people who have marks. Then I again also shifted it for you. Someone who has gone to Ombachi and he probably gets less marks, and someone who has gone to St. Mary's. Now, when you come to the point of payment, you're creating that distinction. So yes, fine. Let me answer that distinction. There are going to be those people who can pay for it. And that's a fact. We cannot run away from that. Actually, it's the truth. It's not even a fact. So, ideally, if an individual can pay for that slot, as I told you, the people who control the money flow are the ones who have the say. So ideally, if you can give me what pleasures me, a couple of millions, definitely, I am going to fall towards you. So that's when I cannot.
And it's not a problem of the government. Yeah?
No. It's not a problem with the government. I've told you the cultures in people have been degraded because
I get his
I
argument.
get it.
the cultures have
I
been
get your
degraded.
argument, you see, but it will still go back to one thing. We are all here, most of us have read the social contract theory, and we do agree that there's a responsibility of the government, but also there's a responsibility of we the citizens. When we put these people in power, we give them the mandate to offer us the basics of what they're supposed to offer through the vote that we give them. And those basics include education, health, among others. But if at all we are to go ahead and look into all those basics of education, huge question marks. The government is supposed to hold persons accountable. Our law provides for non-discrimination, provides for equality. Why must you accept money from someone whose child did not score the required grades, and there's this child who actually maybe scored 4, but failed to get a scholarship because there are no longer district quotas that would give them that leverage to go in those positions? We are advocating for that child. But let me get to Beatrice.
Yes.
The conversation is getting more intense and interesting.
Pressure is getting worse.
Definitely. And we're still trying to ascertain and understand the issue to do with education and training. Possibly here on the panel might have been privileged to go to decent schools. I know you were privileged enough
Yeah,
to
I
go
was
to...
not privileged. I was not privileged.
But look now, look at where you are.
Look at where you are.
Very few of us break this chains. I went to a UPE school.
Yeah.
Very few of my friends that we did with UPE
But
primary
no
school,
one, not everyone is going to break this.
they don't break these chains.
When do we
Alright.
we need to be realistic.
Beatrice, let me get to you. Education and training. Your arguments could be centered on the grounds that, you see, at the moment, we must accept the way things are. But let us try to examine our education and training, which is somewhat gravely lacking and needs to be scrutinized deeply into detail. You see that in the 80s, in the 90s, schools in every region produced decent citizens of this country. You go to Lao College, you get decent leaders, you get decent accountants, you get decent medical personnel. You go to St. Joseph's College on Bachi in West Nile, you get decent citizens. You come to Central Uganda in either Makerere College or Gayaza or whichever school in the Central region, decent. You go to Western Uganda, decent citizens. Now, that shows you the aspect of equality. There was an equal playing field. But now, in a scenario whereby the schools in those rural places have somewhat died off. You cannot get someone scoring 20 points from the Yibi College and coming to get a position in what? In Makerere, because they have got, it's very rare. Teachers are struggling to have their kids get 8 for 8. And it's hard. The entire region is not having 8 for 8.
It's very sad.
And now,
What are the partners that make your children with you?
now, so my question to you is, Beatrice, how can we make this fair?
All right. Going back to the discussion on the desk right now, the West dominating the CEO position.
Yeah.
Are you trying to mean the West people are now the most educated people here? No, they are not. Even she talked about Mbara High School. Mbara High School is producing, I don't want to say, I'm trying to shape it, intellectually lower students than a child from Gaza High School in Central Region.
But they're somewhat
That is-
privileged.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. It's not about education. It's my point.
Yeah.
Drop that education point. It's nothing to do about education. This Westerner is going to get there whether he's educated or not, because it's his time to get there.
Now
Do you
that
get
is the issue.
It's not about
That is the
education.
issue.
Drop
Yeah,
it.
No,
We're not educated. That's why we're there, because it's our time to get there, because I can't get there. You did. So please, I don't want your education background. What time? You talked about the 80s and 90s. You know, before you said that, you were actually honest. You said, you see, in Obote's regime, our schools in the north. you were. Can I now talk, please? Let me submit. You were saying the schools there we also were producing, were delivering. But now what's wrong? It's not your time now. It was your time then. Trust me, a Uganda man is going to come up again, and you will hear Buddo shouting. But Buddo is constant. But I mean, I feel like for me, this factor is time. The factor that facilitates. Okay.
Let us listen to people's sentiments. Her argument is, you bring out a very tribalistic argument, in my opinion. That is what I would have to say. Yeah, because
The race is not to the swift.
it's all right. Let us listen to the argument. I understand all of you could be having responses to our argument. Let's start with Denise, then we shall listen to you.
Okay, so on the issue that Beatrice raises, I think it's very crucial to understand that the reason that these individuals are able to get there is that they have a certain level of qualification. There is no way, because even necessarily if we were saying that the CEO of Uganda Airlines or whatnot, they had papers. So there is no way you could make a justification for someone who doesn't even have access to the papers. Let's just break down this.
Okay.
The reason why they are still there, it's because someone studied in Chapa or studied in Tare and still knows that it's someone from Tare, right? It still stems from the education or the kind of schools that you've gone to that continuously build that narrative and stereotype. Exactly.
Then what makes them many? Because the connections are many. From what position?
Because you're exposed. Necessarily, when you achieve education, when you achieve the level of education that any other person has not achieved, it gives you a better exposure to things like PhDs, to things like masters we're talking about. There are people from the eastern region, even from the northern region, who have masters but have still struggled to get jobs within the job market in Uganda, or even to be in the CEO or the top positions in Uganda. Necessarily, it stems from the kind of education or the resources, the financial muscle that then you have. Because if you say that it is time, then I don't know when West Nile is going to get time. I haven't seen any opposition.
Actually, I think you're agreeing with me and you're disagreeing at the end. You've just told me there's actually with a master's, but he can't get there.
Yes, because necessarily
he actually
studied.
not about his education.
It's okay.
It's about him.
Beatrice, it's fine. No, it's fine. Let's just Beatrice, let her conclude. Then we listen from Jimmy. Yeah.
So when you look at it, it's because necessarily maybe Drake is going to find it hard because he studied in Laibi College, even when he has better education. But then because the CEO of probably NSSF or Uganda Airlines comes from the West, even when I do not have the kind of qualifications, I'm going to be able to get there. But what then is the connection? It is the education, the stereotype that then we have against these institutions, the narratives that have continuously built around Tare, around Buranyanji, around Maryhill, even without even going into the central. I studied from northern Uganda, I studied from St. Catherine, but I can't go to an office and probably compete with someone else who studied in Maryhill or who studied in Buranyanji, because the stereotype is the better education is provided in the West. So you find it very detrimental to the kind of or the kind of opinion that you have. But then too, on the second submission, it's your time because you have the money. And where does the money come from?
Power.
You're able to
You guys think
influence.
there's no difference between power and money?
No. If you're
You don't
economically...
differentiate the two?
No, it's all right.
See,
Let us have this.
any person that does not have money doesn't have a choice. That's how it operates. If you're economically franchised and you're able to access things, it gives you a choice, either to go to Wudo or to go to Ntare. When you don't have money, you're going to opt for a UPE school or USC school. And at the end of it all, you're not going to be able to access university or even the best institutions in the country because you do not have that money. You cannot make that choice. So the kind of choices we make necessarily come from how empowered we are economically. And if you do not have that economic empowerment, you don't have a choice. So,
Perfect. Let me listen from Jimmy. Then Beatrice will come in and respond and listen from Jawia.
Articles 21 and 22 of the Constitution of Uganda advocates for non-discrimination and negates any form of discrimination. So if you begin saying it is our time and our moment, you begin to create a subjective argumentation, not objective.
Are we being realistic here?
Definitely.
Definitely.
It's this argument.
What it is.
it's outside.
It is what it is. I will not change my argument because you think I'm telling you the truth.
So Beatrice,
if you're feeling discriminated,
No, I'm not feeling
sorry.
any
It is what it is.
No, Beatrice.
Okay.
I think now you're getting into a point that you're making this debate subjective and not objective, because the individuals outside there that need the same opportunities because they're Ugandans. You're not going to deny them the chance because they're not from the West. So their time. The regions in this country that will never get a chance. Probably Bukedi will never get a president any soon. Bay may never get a president. So when will they get a chance?
Yeah.
So how about you created an atmosphere that everyone can pick a piece of the national cake? Let me tell you something. This issue of the region imbalance all stems back to poverty. Trust me, if regions in this country are doing well economically, people will not care about the region someone is coming from.
Definitely.
If there are medicines in hospitals, if the roads are good, if the quality of education is good, people wouldn't care who the vice president is because services are on the ground. People are actually raising these issues because the services on the ground are bad. And the argumentation that you raise in regard to this moment, the people from the West that are also complaining, everyone from the West is content. So for you to think that it is our moment as people from the West. That is a wrong analogy because the people from the West that are not content. They are also not benefiting from these particular institutions. They do not have the money. They cannot take their children to Tare. They are poor. So how do we create an opportunity for all these particular citizens that cannot afford to attain this particular education and compete favorably for these opportunities? That's the argumentation. That should be purely the argumentation.
Now, can I answer everyone?
So if we begin,
Because I want time. When I'm answering, can I not be...
So if we begin narrowing the argumentation into more of a subjective argumentation rather than objective, that makes the whole debate a little childish.
All right.
You have your time, Beatrice.
It's your time.
This is the question.
It's your time.
On the desk. We are asking ourselves, why is it that the Westerners are dominating CEO positions? And we listed out factors. We said it's probably the education. People said scattering. They would say this, then they contradict themselves at the end. Then we said, let's probably say history. I think people didn't talk about history much because history just, your background, your education also is your history. So we are still finding, we're struggling to find why is it that we cannot balance these regions to have CEOs like in the 90s. You have CEOs coming from everywhere. Isn't the question here? And this is what I'm arguing. I'm saying these Westerners, for now, are in a better position. I want you to understand me.
Why are they in a better position?
See, I'm coming. Okay. Let me finish, yeah? You can round up, I don't know, whatever it is. This is what I am submitting. Yeah, education away. Okay. In fact, the only thing you people can do right now is study and wait for your time. Like, I don't know if even if you call me much because I'm speaking facts. I want us to be realistic. Stop telling me education. It is going to take you somewhere. You see, the people I was talking to these boys on our way here, and I was telling them, people from the north, 10, 20 years ago, with the first president. I think the first president was Muganda, but that Muganda was people. The Northerners you guys were intellectual. You guys quickly in the regions here in Uganda. The Northerners are the ones that picked up intellect quickly. Like you guys entered parliament quick. You guys are the guys that So because of that, time came and these guys were ahead of us. They were educated. They were more educated. They were more what. The president that is heading us.
Can I ask a question? Quickly. On that point, you're going to come up to speed there.
All right.
You're going to come up to speed there. In that period in time, in that point in time, where your assertion is Northerners were in the thing.
Yes.
Did you know in that point in time, the people that Obote was mentoring weren't from the north? One.
That's what I'm saying. I was saying the president came in from that.
But now the thing.
The roads were still driving on in Western Uganda are Obote roads.
The roads everywhere were worked upon. The education was equitable everywhere. So now the argument of it is
our time.
You guys. I'm answering the question. You guys. I'm answering the question.
Beatrice, I think you should tell us how we can create an equal level, a playing ground that is a little fair.
Why don't you try and answer that question?
Which question?
The question is, how are we going to create an equal ground?
When your time comes.
We can't create an that's
that's what you guys been asking me for solutions. No. This is reality. There will never be an equal table anywhere. I believe in equity. I don't believe in equality. I believe in help. You need to help me. How there will never be. You guys are here to be.
So you have no problem with this.
No. You guys want to have an equal table where?
It's fine.
Okay, if it's not equity, it is. Maybe how are we going to help these people? Education. Infrastructure, but this is what politicians have been shouting every day, but they never do these things. I don't want to be among them. Every day, every time, TV, NBS, people are talking about solutions, but they never happen. And I don't want to be this. This is what you want this discussion to be about. I thought we were talking about what is causing this, like what is happening.
Do you have a problem with discrimination?
No, I know it is. We will live with it forever. Even now, Israel is fighting discrimination for a long time. It's in the Bible. Discrimination will never end. So stop. There is no problem with discrimination. No, there is no solution for discrimination.
All right, interesting. Okay, Beatrice, it's fine. The conversation is getting more interesting. Personally, I don't know what exactly to think and what to submit, but you've just amused me. Like,
equity. How are we going to help them? Maybe the infrastructure.
It's fine. No, the truth is, it's very hard to get an equal playing field. All we ask for is the barest of minimums to give people
Equity.
what is
Fair.
equitable for everyone
Fair enough.
to get through the ranks. That even a boy in Nagongera district knows.
Nagongera is not a district.
No, it's
in Tororo.
Yes, in Tororo.
Nagongera town
Yeah,
council.
that even someone in Nagongera down there would have some hope that I can go through the ranks and become CEO here. I can go through the ranks and become this. But Jawia, as we wind up on this issue of education and training, because it has sparked a lot of debate. You've been very seemingly quiet, but I would like to sort of pick your thoughts. Then we can maybe go for a short break if the
It's
time
his
is up.
time, eh?
Then we come
my
back.
time.
Yeah, it's your time.
So what's the question?
So the question is just wind up on the issue of education and training.
Education and training. I don't know what I should add. Because I feel like the point we have reached right now is so objective, and I think, okay, fine. Education and training. Ideally, I think every human being needs education, and he needs to be trained in a certain field, because the world we live in today, you cannot survive. If you're going to take us back to the 60s, or live around the 60s, let me say the 700s and all that, the only training you needed was probably how to cut a rock into a block. But now, that training is of no essence. Now you need training on how to put chemicals together to form probably medicine.
The skills. Yeah.
You need a skill. You need different types of training based on the eon that we're in, the era we're in.
Right.
So I think when it comes to education and training, definitely everybody needs it. But then when you start to equate it to our situation in the country, it goes. You just take us back to Beatrice and say that there's nothing we can do.
Just musome
So if you're asking, if the
books
question,
and wait for that government.
that's
But
the-
you
so
can't
if
show
the
yourself
question,
CEO positions. What is the way? The road
It's
to a
okay.
CEO.
Let's first quickly listen in from
Moderate.
Denise, and I'll get to you. Yeah, because it looks like this issue still needs to be analyzed further. Denise.
You see, right now, actually, education without exposure or any networks or any skilling is becoming useless. In India, every 1 out of 3 Indians actually has a PhD. So what is that more you can add to a workplace, and that's why they need to employ you. Minus the education we get, these schools tend to give you exposure to other skills, tend to give you networks, tend to give you the kind of mentorship that you need, that then these other individuals are not able to access. If you go to UPE, USE, the education could be the same, but the difference is on exposure. And that is what they are looking for at workplaces, and who is able to access then that exposure. It's not about, I've gone to university, I've gotten a degree. Then how are we going to compete? Because very many Ugandans are graduating day in, day out. So the kind of exposure you have is what is going to put you in a better position. And that is what is lacking, because if you find the infrastructures, like SK in northern Uganda, or even Laibi, or even Tororo Girls, are not able to give these facilities, are not able to give these kinds of skills to those individuals, then they cannot compete. You're still going to go to university and graduate and still be the same, because you do not have any other exposure to what is needed at a workplace, or you do not have any other skill. So it's not a matter of education, it's what kind of education are you then accessing that puts you into that position.
Which exposure are we talking about? The exposure from the point of view of the employer, or exposure from the point of view of the institution?
So now, for example, you went to SMAC, right?
Yes,
And
I
you
did.
know the kind of networks that then you've built out of SMAC, right? You know the mentorship programs that you underwent,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So does someone else there in the village, probably in Eastern Uganda or in Bokedi sub-region, have access to such networks and such mentorship programs that you underwent?
Some yes, some no.
Exactly. So the largest number of the people who are able to access that are people who have a choice to take their children to the schools which are going to groom them to be able to compete for those positions. And they're seemingly, for the past 36 years, coming from one region. Do we agree?
So okay, I just want to get it right. So is the problem what the employers want, or what the schools are failing to offer?
The infrastructure which the government has failed to make equitable to every other Ugandan to access.
Moderator.
Jimmy, you had something to say.
I will go back to Beatrice's submission. So when Beatrice comes out and says, it is our time, You're preaching a gospel of hate outside. The people that are going to watch this, you're preaching a gospel of hate, literally meaning that we should also wait for a moment and then target these people, which is very wrong. People need to heal from this history. We need to build a unity as a country. When you read the Constitution of Uganda, the preamble about our history of war and everything, and they talk about reconciliation and brotherhood, that is not the spirit. That is not. You need to create a sense of brotherhood so that people live in cohesion in society, people have an acceptance of themselves and identify themselves as Ugandans. That is when you are going to have peace in this country. But if you're telling people that wait for your moment, people are going to target, they'll say, let's sit back, wait, then we target them as well. Which happened to the people from the northern part of this country. They faced that. They were targeted, which is very wrong. And I pray that the government that comes to power does not begin to target people from the West, because the people that are innocent, they are from the West, but they have nothing to do with this government. So if we begin targeting people, that is very wrong. So I think we should be creating a place that is fair, people can access the cake, and everyone has a piece. You cut your piece and go home and live a decent life. So more of creating a decent life for every citizen of this country, so that they do not begin to grumble. When people begin to grumble, they can become so desperate. Now what you're saying, this is our time. This is when the Western forces can even begin to use us. These regions will feel disgruntled. The Western forces use those particular regions to destabilize the country, and they get whatever they want. So you're preaching disunity, which is really, really bad. We need to speak about cohesion. How do Ugandans benefit from everything? Let's not make this debate tribal.
If it's not there.
No, we can make it. We can make it. It's possible. It starts with respect and acceptance of each and everyone. Accept that he's a human being. This is a human being. They have a right to education. They have a right to employment. They have a right to decency.
CEO here. That's what
No,
education. I said yes.
CEO is employment.
I was saying CEO just wait.
But it stems back to the education. It stems back to the education. That's why I told you.
Dominance of CEO, not lifestyle.
Listen,
But it's our time.
The argument he's making,
Beatrice.
he's not looking at it only from the point of a CEO.
But which I was looking for, which I was looking at it like that.
Beatrice,
It's okay.
let me just conclude.
Maybe you just
Beatrice.
preach.
Beatrice.
But no, I'm saying preach. But don't say that's what I was saying.
Beatrice.
That's what I was saying.
No, it's
Beatrice.
fine,
So
it's
please.
fine.
Beatrice, I said in this show here that if Civic Space made an advertisement for a job, predominantly people from the West are going to qualify more because they have the access to the education. When you graduate every year, Makerere is going to be graduating in January. You see as graduations, but predominantly the students that graduate are from one region because those students have parents that can pay for them. They can access the education. So how do you create a level ground that everyone can at least access this education? This starts by creating frameworks in the economics that people can get employed. And you create frameworks that when employing people, when someone gets out from the university, we should have a clear process of recruiting people. That it's not about the person you know. Recruitment should be on merit, as was in the UPC government, that you're recruited on merit. So it shouldn't be basically because you know someone or because it is your moment. So recruitment should be on merit, and that is when you're going to have a healing process and reconciliation. Beatrice, I beg that you stop that saying, oh, this is our moment.
But also
It's
jobs
bad.
are not there.
Okay,
Man,
okay.
let me tell you something. Even if I stop,
Honestly.
even if I don't.
It's bad.
If it's happening,
Okay,
it's
guys.
happening.
Now this is the thing. Norbert Mao recently was calling for people. He wants to come up with something to reconcile Ugandans, and clearly from this panel, I can see we need reconciliation.
Yeah, honestly.
And as a country, we are in a point
It's
of
gaslighting.
at a point as a country, we definitely need to be reconciled. We have a lot of pain in our hearts. Definitely, no,
You
it's
guys
true.
need
It's
to
true.
be fine.
The thing is, if you get the chance to move across the country, go up country, and
Is that?
have conversations with people. People are bleeding, and in a country that you have in a multi-ethnic country with over 64 tribes, and everyone is pointing fingers onto one region, and yet even in that region you have people who still feel marginalized. It creates that is a room for conflict, which I do think we really need reconciliation. But just before we go for a break, I want us to introduce a topic that would help back up the issue to do with education and training, which is something you tried mentioning, the economic policies, the ability for us to have the money in our pockets to finance the education of our children, to expose our children, to see that people have the capacity to, when the time comes, they have attained all that is required for them to get into those positions. Because we have already ascertained the fact that, yes, education, there's a lot lacking and a lot needs to be done. But now let us look at the economics, which I'll just now again begin with you, Denise. The conversation has centered a lot around education. Just quickly, as we go for a break, economic policies. So let us try and analyze the economic policies and regulations that have impacted the business environment, mainly possibly in favor of people from Western Uganda.
Well, okay, so in terms of economic policies, you're going to realize one thing even before I begin. SMEs, over 50% of Ugandans are involved in SMEs, right? And most of these SMEs die even before their first birthday because of the unfavorable economic policies that then exist. What does that then leave? Pampered children of the state who are going to be exempted from taxes. You're going to find that most of the Westerners, the businesses that they own, they're going to be exempted from taxes, or they're going to be given subsidies as compared to other SMEs that empower other citizens. So you find out that they're just children of the state that are pampered and continuously, like they're not giving what they're supposed to give. But then too, the economic policies that we have in terms of regulations are not favorable for each and every individual. For example, I'm going to give an example of things like probably charcoal burning, right? You know of recent how they have passed a law that charcoal burning should be stopped. But then you're not considering the livelihoods of people in northern Uganda that are depending on that charcoal without giving them an alternative. But then too, in terms of paying of taxes, even when these taxes are paid, they do not do what they're supposed to do. Most of our budget is more into military financing or manufacturing the bullets that are being manufactured in Nakasongola. So you find out that most of these economic policies where you're going to have the taxes reinvested, or even people who are owning businesses, they are being pampered, but then the taxes are not doing what they're supposed to do. So it becomes very detrimental to things like infrastructures, because the same money the government collects, it's supposed to reinvest it back into the welfare of citizens. So instead of social welfare maximization, what we are having tends to be more about profit maximization, even for the government. Where does the government benefit? Ignoring the social contract that then we have with the citizens. So you find it's very detrimental on those three terms. Who is having the favorable economic policies? Who is having the tax subsidies? But then two, what are the taxes doing? Three, the majority of the Ugandans involved in SMEs. How do you boost and help to grow them? So it becomes very problematic if we analyze those three aspects.
Perfect. Jimmy, still on the issue of economics and policies, as we try to just quickly talk about this as we go for the break. When we come back, we shall delve deeper. What's your say?
State House spends about 2 billion every day. That's taxpayers, 2 billion every day on State House. So how about reduced on the expenditures of State House? And the money we spend on the military as well. Get it back to the population. Enable these people thrive. We have a country that, over the time, there's been an argument of having a minimum wage. But countries have now moved to a living wage, not just a minimum wage. How about we bring those things as well to play? That people should have a decent wage. If you're being paid, can the money sustain you? So those things all need to play because they eventually determine the kind of people we are producing. People that have access to those particular facilities will end up being in those big positions. So if those issues can be addressed, and how can we get people into the money economy? How can we let people feel the money themselves? Because when the time this country was talking about the middle income economy, only two regions surfaced in regard to that: Central and Greater Mbarara. The people there were at middle income status. So how can we make other parts of the region, other parts of the country, have that economic status, that we can have a person that is at least having more than $1 in a day? Because very many Ugandans work and only 1% of this population earns $1 million in a month. A great percentage of this population earns 150,000 in a month. Are you going to pay rent? Are you going to pay utilities? So how can we get people to have a more decent pay and have a living wage so that they can actually get into these particular opportunities? They can have a decent education, they can access health care and all that. So that people stop grumbling. So the policy framework goes back to the government in charge. Let them create institutions that enable, and I like initiatives that the government has created. But then the management itself is the problem. the Youth Livelihood Project, the NADS, and all, they're good projects, but they're mismanaged by people. So if those particular programs are managed well, people get into the money economy, people can build themselves economically, then they can take their children to good schools. Then from there, we shall all be at equal level and people can compete for these opportunities and take you on the basis of merit, not just because it's your moment.
All right, Jawia, then I get
Yes.
to Beatrice, then we go for a break. Quickly, just briefly, what do you think we need to do when it comes to the economic policies that we have? Denise has raised an issue that you see when we have people in the country who are we have majority of Ugandans who enter into the entrepreneurial sector and they cannot sustain the business to see their first birthday. But there are those ones who are pampered by the state. He raises an argument that you see we need to go forward and have everyone involved into the money economy. How do we stem away from just one region being in the middle income status, but also have the rest of the regions moving in tandem with them? What's your say?
Well, for me, I think we always have to look at this as on the two sides. I don't think we should always be pointing fingers. Fine, okay, I can't say pointing fingers because that will bring another argument in its own. But I don't want us to say that, you know what, the government has not done this or the government should do this. We should also look at the aspect of the human beings we're dealing with. We all know human beings are very complicated individuals. You get, people are going to go with conviction over principle. And yet there are principles in labor, there are principles in economics, there are principles in the way these things run, the way we run our society. You're not going to tell me that your first income, you're going to pick, let me say that 500K. And just because it's your first income, you're like, you know what? I think let me spend it on a night out. That's like 200,000. Go on, fuel, what. You run with 300K. 300K, you have to pay rent. It cannot come. You're already breaking principle over your convictions. Convictions like, my first money, I need to enjoy it. You know, there are principles that are there and that you have to follow. So human beings in themselves also need to have some form of training, of which I cannot say that we have an elaborate system that can train human beings. But then again, it's not saying that it cannot be made. It's not there. It's possible. So in us saying that the government has not done everything, this or that, I think we should also look at the human beings in themselves.
All right, okay. Beatrice, just before going to the break, what can we do better in terms of improving people getting involved in the money economy so that we can have an equal playing field?
So I think, in short, economic growth. How do we grow this? Of course, as economics says, improve infrastructure. Let us be able to access everyone. Then we set up model farms of whatever it is, whatever business we want to spread out to all these regions. We look at what they are lacking, But I feel like the government is trying, you people. We see that where tea is, the government is trying to make sure there is more tea. Where coffee is, they are trying to supply. Where there is, so I think that is it. I think better whatever business it is there, then also improve infrastructure and access and economic
I also
growth.
believe the government is trying.
Government is doing it.
I also believe the government
That's
is trying.
right. We should just quickly go for a short break and then we'll be right back. It's been an interesting first half of the show. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the second half. See you shortly. Bye-bye.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
All right, welcome back from that break. Right before we went into the break, the panel here was heated, and people were, people almost wanted to jump off their seats and and get to attack each other. But we are back, and we are here trying to talk about why is it that the West dominates most of the CEO positions, and argumentations have been raised. But right now we are moving into the aspect of the economic policies, of which previously, before we went into the break, we just quickly hinted on it. So now, I just want us to get back on internalizing and getting to the nitty-gritties of the arguments we raised. I'll start with you, Jimmy. Jimmy, you raised an argument that we need to get everyone involved, having everyone in the money economy. And you gave an example that we have in the West, you say, you assert that at least most of the people there are in a middle income status, of which we need to have all the regions brought into the middle income status. Now, speak to the issue of the economic policies, but relating to the argument that you earlier raised.
You see now when you talk about the economics generally, it's going to go back to the government in play. How do you get people into the money economy? How do you create opportunities for young people to thrive in regards to their regions? And I want to draw it back a little to Milton Obone's government, the UPC government. In the UPC government, there was a cooperative system that every region had something they would offer in the job in the economy. Bukedi, for itself, for instance, had cotton. Busoga had coffee. Buganda had coffee and bananas. Teso had oranges, groundnuts. Northern Uganda had something they were producing. So every particular region had a specialization in regards to the economy. That is no longer the case. So when you kill cooperatives, you kill individuals. You kill what these people can create. Because these particular crops they're growing matched their soils. And that's meant that people could send their kids to the best schools and their kids would go to the university. But that is not now the case. The case has changed over the time. There's no clear direction in regards to regions in what they produce. I think there's only one cooperative union that still stands now. Bukisu Cooperative Union. That one has stood over the time. They deal in coffee and all that. But you see the economic leverage that those people get from that. So I think the government should reconsider having cooperatives in this country so that regions have what they produce, so that they can go as a big number and bargain in regards to the prices of these particular commodities. And they don't get exploited by people that are buying. If we know that Teso is producing oranges, yes, Teso is producing oranges, we can have a factory producing juice there. If we know that Buked is producing cotton, we can have a factory there that is doing what? Is making clothes and textile. If we know that Western Ankole is producing milk, we can have a factory there processing milk and people can buy that milk. If we know that West Nile is probably producing cattle as well, we know that that is what they are producing and we can thrive on that. If we know that Great Kigezi is producing Irish, we can have a crisps factory there. We have crisps coming from that region. So that every region has a sense of specialization. And this goes back to the citizens feeling the economic leverage. They enter now into the real money economy. But when you let people break off and you have one person dealing in cattle here, another one is dealing, it literally makes no sense because the person, when they go out there in the job market, they cannot bargain and they get exploited by manufacturers. Another thing is that the government is not protecting citizens. Busoga region has a lot of sugar factories. And over the time, everywhere is full of sugarcane. But the pricing of the sugarcane itself, a lorry sometimes goes to about 115,000. Sugarcane takes almost a year for you to harvest it with tireless hard work and all that. So the government should protect citizens in regards to bargaining. So if people can create cooperatives, for example, if Busoga had a cooperative, serious cooperative union, that cooperative union for its sugarcane, then these people can actually bargain on behalf of the cooperative and the standard price is determined for the lorry of sugarcane, other than having individuals going there to sell sugarcane. So I think, from my argumentation always has been in regards to having an economy that is thriving. Let us bring back cooperatives, let regions have what they're producing, and when they have what they're producing, we can set up industries there to process whatever they're producing. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Mainly focusing on value addition, but also that would bring in the aspect that, unfortunately, we are no longer part of the AGOA, and that would open us to a free market where we would easily take our products. But also aside from that, we do not produce value.
Let me just say something about AGOA.
Yeah.
I don't think AGOA will generally affect this economy. I don't want to go back to that narrative. Rwanda, the US said that Rwanda is dictatorial and there's no constitutionalism. and Rwanda was scrapped up from AGOA, but Rwanda is thriving. So that can't be the basis that we are not going to thrive as an economy.
Well,
I don't think.
But we have seen what has happened in our country. Even when certain things are there, you actually don't feel the impact. Because how many people felt the impact of AGOA when it was there?
When it was there.
Anyway, Denise, you raised an argument in regards to we are largely an entrepreneurial state, and very many young people are engaging in entrepreneurship. But unfortunately, most of the people are very unfortunate not to witness the first birthday of their venture. But then there are those people who are spoon-fed, who are pampered by the state, who have who get tax holidays, waivers, among others, and have they have access to power, and then maybe get the money and send their children to top schools and get the best education to become better people in this country. Now, expound on the argument that you earlier on raised and in relation to this conversation.
Yeah. Okay. So before that, I'll just add on what Jimmy says. In terms of value addition, it becomes very important when you go to districts like Queen, where they largely produce things like Irish. At times, in a very good season, you could find them selling a sack of Irish at 20,000 because they do not have any means, or it is just going to rot within their houses or within their households. And you find it's very difficult then for them to get anything or any benefit from the Irish that they have grown. But then on that point, see, where we are going, it's definitely the role of the government. And this is where I'm going to contradict and say the government has not done much within the entrepreneurial sector of Uganda. One, in terms of development or even with competing with other countries, there is no way we're going to compete on the world market with coffee or what. Innovations, young people's creativity needs to be invested in. Innovation is not only Western. Many Ugandans, when you're able to move within the districts and you're able to move within probably Sironko, Kwen, Mbale, coming to Rakai, Chotera, there are very many young people that have innovated things that have not been supported. The world is technologically progressing. We have to agree. But then too, we think that then this creativity does not need to die out. What the government needs to do is to create things like skilling hubs, mentorship hubs, for these individuals to showcase what they have done, to showcase their innovations, because they are mind-blowing innovations that are happening that young people are doing. But the government has not done much to invest in those ones. It has not done much to mentor them, to skill them, to continuously have them on the job market to compete favorably. It is beyond our own market as young people. Probably you're not going to trade, you're going to come up with an app, or you're going to come up with something that makes life easier, maybe to trace where you can get something else, or these people are able to innovate things like things in renewable energy, but also things like maybe in many innovations that are coming up that young people are doing. There are innovations that are happening in Eastern Uganda about briquettes. But then how many has the government gone there to see how these women are trying to empower themselves to end like the entire charcoal burning? None of them has gone there. When you look at the cleaning up of water in Eastern Uganda, where gold was discovered and the mercury was destroying the water, a young person came up with an innovation to separate the mercury from the water. But these are innovations that die out. And entirely our mentality that tells us that innovation is only Western. No, it has never been. We think that these innovations need to be invested in. These innovations, the startups, need to be supported. And if you're telling us that the Youth Livelihood Program, and that's why I have that problem with the government comes up with initiatives almost after the other has failed. They just change names, they don't change the implementation, they don't change. This year we have Youth Livelihood Program. Tomorrow we have PDM. The next day we are going to have OPM. The next time we're going to have Yoga. But it is not giving substantive benefits to these young people, because entirely when the money is channeled back to the local governments, the cows or even the people in charge of that money are going to corrupt it. It's not benefiting young people. Young people need tangible benefits. Their startups need to thrive. You're going to put subsidies on startups, meaning that even if they were to pay taxes, that money they could have used is reinvested in those startups. What is not existing? And you see, of recent, our Mr. President is sort of hiding his domestic failures with the entire Pan-African agenda, which would be okay. But even though we were to have things like African Continental Free Trade Area, that of recent is talking about, and the future of Africa, what is Uganda going to trade with Kenya or anything? There are no innovations that have been supported, startups that have been supported. What the free trade area is going to help with is Uganda going to move from here to Congo and take coffee or anything. That's not how the world market or the global market is operating at the moment. It is operating on innovations. It's operating on technology. Young women thriving, young people thriving. If something is supposed to be for young people, it has to be, young people have to feel it. So we need to stop the entire narrative. You see, I actually wanted to point out the entire thing of Buy Uganda, Build Uganda was a very good initiative. But where has it gone now? The kind of investment within Ugandan made products or within every innovation that was done by Ugandan people. These are things that we no longer see. But then too, talking about the influx of MNCs, multinational companies in Uganda, you're going to find that even the kind of companies that we have, right from things like maybe hotels or anything, they are owned by foreigners. What that means, there is labor exploitation for a young Ugandan, even with qualification, to work in any of those companies or to work in any of those investments. So you find that it's very difficult for them to rise up the ranks and then continuously also come up with something that is going to benefit them. So you find that reluctancy in the policies, but then to government investing in young people is very problematic. But then the third thing we think that is very important is to support young people's hustle. Because if this, you see like how Tubayo is skyrocketing, right? These are young people who are doing all this, and definitely the government is going to enjoy from this GDP. But if we are not able to realize the potential of young people in terms of their innovations, support their creativity, have skilling hubs for them, then there is no way we're going to harness from the potential of these young people.
Okay, perfect. I see what you're pushing there. The government needs to prioritize and seeing that they support initiatives and innovations by young people to help better place them and improve their livelihoods. But Jawia, I want us to shift gears and talk about corporate culture. Earlier on in the other half of the show, you talked about you raised an argument in relation to we as people. You talked about separating conviction and principle. Now let us put a corporate face to that argument, that we have companies, we have industries, and when it comes to their recruitment system, oftentimes they recruit not based on merit, but based on grounds of who do you know, what they normally term as Kambanogo.
Gambanogo.
Yes.
I thought you were talking about vetting instead.
Of course.
How does he
Who
act
sent
instead
you?
of merit? Oh, okay.
Yeah, who sent you? The question
Corporate
of who sent
culture
you.
is okay.
Corporate culture, which then informs our form of recruitment.
On that.
Now, speak to the issue of corporate culture. Most of our industries, most of the companies nowadays are not recruiting on merit, but rather on who sent you, or who do you know, or oh, you my OB, or you this and that. So, Jawia, let's just quickly listen from you.
With respect to that corporate culture,
Yeah.
what I can say is I was in a discussion with one of my bosses when I was interning, and he told me something that's funny. He told me that when you look at some of these institutions, it looks bad. The face of it, prima facie, is very bad. But the idea is human beings are more comfortable with what they're familiar with. For example, if you look at this symbol, let me say, if you're trying to tell someone that aliens are there or they are ghosts, people will not understand it because they don't know what to make of it. So their reaction to it is going to be different. That's the same thing that happens with jobs. You know, people are scared to
hire aliens.
To hire aliens, someone they're not used to. That's the explanation he gave me. He told me like, it's easy for me to hire someone I know. You know that saying, better the devil you know than the angel you don't. Yeah, that's what he was painting a picture of. And that's I think that is the whole narrative.
It makes sense.
That's the whole narrative behind that. That's what I think. Because it makes perfect sense. But ideally, again, the fact is it's not good. Ideally, you're supposed to help everyone. Everyone needs a chance. But then again, as human beings, I can't trust what I don't know. You get, that is what I think they run to. However, when you run back to the issue of conviction and principle, you're going to come into, okay, fine. Let me say we are friends. I make it have a big company, you know. You have a son, and you tell me, you know what, my son has studied here and here, or I think he can do something. I'm going to give you a chance because I know you. You get. But when your son comes in and he doesn't follow principle, there is a way he's not going to be favored per se. You get. It's fine, you're going to get into the job, but you're not going to get into the job. You come in late, you disrespect people, definitely people are going to have a reaction towards you. That's how you find them falling off. You get. And so that's where principle and conviction comes up. So when it comes to recruitment, I think surely it is based on
I'll get you. Let me just
the angel you know and the
It's okay. Let me first get Beatrice's views on the issue of corporate culture. Jawia raises a very good analogy that the conversation first they had with his boss during internship, and it looks like now that is what employers are looking at. Most of these corporate entities are looking at. Maybe your father, your uncle belongs to a Rotaract club somewhere, or they play golf together, or they went to the same school then together, and they know each other. But then there is this one person down there who went to the I don't mention his school, but who went to a village school, and that school has no network of OBs or OGs. There's even no WhatsApp group maybe, and this young person is trying to climb the ranks, but there's no way that person can.
it's difficult.
It's difficult. But then you find that the recruitment system says it should be seamless, equal, and non-discriminatory. But yet in practice, it's the same. So what is your say on the issue of the corporate culture that is arising now, which is non-discriminatory and not equal in nature?
I think it is what it is, you people. You know, it's relative. You're going to pick an institute that is lucky enough and on board, and that very day they want merit, and then you will get in on merit, because we work with these people and you realize, where did this one come from?
Right.
But he's here and he's working hard. He knows that day he walked into that office, this boss looked and said, you know what, you bring those papers, you're qualified. Then you're going to walk into an office, you realize here you walk in, and if I have a 4, I need to talk to the worker for 5 days. I need at least, even if I don't have a connection for the boss, even to get to the boss, you need connection. You just go in and keep befriending receptionist and whatever. So corporate culture is relative for me, determines on what you're going to walk into. So prepare yourself. Like I said, intellectually, socially, Panange, you people, befriend rich people. Go out. I'm telling you. How you want us to preach here? You want me to start saying we preach unity? No, we're fake. Because you don't know what door you're going to walk into. Make sure you're rich socially and economically.
Rub shoulders.
And make sure you're rich intellectually. That is it.
That's true.
Sorry, Jimmy, I think you have something.
Yeah.
They won't teach you how to get a job in school.
Okay.
They will not.
You know, this may sound a little derogative, but you're personalizing this.
Can I have some water? Can I have some water?
The appointment of CEOs. Let me just say this. The debate is getting heated. The CEOs go through a vetting process. And there is that process of vetting and they get appointed. And the appointing authority is the executive. So how do you create a forum that everyone can go through the vetting process with fairly and they get the job on merit? Other than saying, I need to know someone and then someone links me. How can we break that chain and say there should be a basis that you go there on merit?
This guy is not understanding.
No,
Let me answer that. If just recently, there is a big, I want to mention it, there's a big company that was recruiting. And it has done that process for over, not once, not twice, more than twice. Because we're trying to fight these ones that have gotten it, they didn't get in the right way. Then they redo. The processes have been set. Like you say, it's generalized. They even put it in paper. They publish. Like as it is in law. Here we are lawyers. We study labor law. Employment. What is it that it needs? Put out first. Have you noticed? they follow these. All these companies actually put out, they advertise, but the system.
No, that's the issue.
They are
breaking.
breaking.
This issue of breaking. How do you break that chain? That should be the issue. That you got a fairness.
And I'm saying that the way it is put out, they've tried to solve it in a way you can't know. Like the system here in public, you
can't know.
You can't. Okay, you have
can't
to
know.
suffer to be a victim. Okay.
Rephrase.
Okay, yeah. Okay, let me rephrase.
Yeah.
You can't sue even. Like, do you understand? Like these guys know how to beat the system. There is no way you can. Like, if I know the question you're asking me. Let me first answer it, then you can. Yeah. These guys make it look like they did it fairly. Do you understand? And they already know how to.
Who is the appointing authority, Beatrice?
The executive.
Then how should the executive play a fair game? That's what you should be talking about.
Oh, we just be realistic. You cannot, eh?
They have, because they've put out laws for these employment companies on who to hire and what to hire.
Who
To hire
hires?
is who?
Who signs the contracts?
It's all right. Let's
Can we? I want to sum up. Can we wrap this up? Because this man here, I don't know what he wants.
No, it's fine. Okay. Let's just wrap up. The issue of corporate culture. Denise, let me just hear from you.
Denise, you've cracked, Denise, you've cracked.
People, I don't want us to be viral. So can we maintain?
Though that
Corporate
thing of signing contracts, who signs them? There's a process. Just so you know, it's not that the executive is the one who.
But we're talking about
gives out
CEOs here. The
That's
appointing
fine,
authority is
that's fine.
executive.
Let's just listen in from Denise.
All right. Seems like I'm the only unradical person here. But, well, talking about the entire corporate culture, I'll just begin from where Kenneth had talked about. There is a culture that has died out. Even when there is a process that then these individuals have to go through, they're going to put up the notice, they're going to shortlist candidates, but I'm going to make a call to the board and be like, I want this person to be there, even when they've mastered to go around the system, right? But I think there is, you see, how they say that every individual who is in government should go for patriotism in Chankwanzi, right? Why do we have to wait for these individuals to first get into the workplaces or even the local government or anything, and then have to take them to Chankwanzi to learn about the values of patriotism or even nationalism? There is one thing that we need to understand. The reason why Japan or the US or China are actually more developed than the LDCs, it's because of their work ethic. If you're not qualified, if you do not have the merits, then you're not going to get into that office. And this is something that has to do with work ethics, right? And in Uganda, what they want to tell you is that first get into local government and go to Chankwanzi and then learn the values of patriotism and nationalism. If you're able to know that I'm putting someone not qualified in such a position, there are very many people going to be affected in terms of social services, in terms of delivery. There are very many Ugandans that are actually going to be served by that one person, whether it is a CEO, whether it is in a public place, or in any other position. So I think things like nationalism, patriotism should be instilled right from the beginning. In our senior ones or anything, we used to have these things where we are going chaka for the last 1 week in senior one. But these are things that are dying out. And for example, you know that I'm supposed to love my country no matter the potholes that are on the road that make me unpatriotic. So you're able to understand the values of the work ethics that you have. You're able to understand the value of the position that you hold. If you're able to hold it in a very nice way, you're going to benefit very many Ugandans. But now it's about what do I get as an individual? And you see, society functions in a way that every human is interlinked to another. It's more of unity. Human beings inherently need each other to survive, right? So if we are able to know that, and Ubuntu is what we need, or even all those principles, the Pan-Africanism or unity is what we need, then for a functioning society, we're able to function well. But then corporate culture, we need the ethics that have died out. I can't come to your office and bribe you or anything. That kind of culture that used to be instilled in traditional schools. I studied in a traditional school. So you're able to understand that these values are my principles, and my principles are what define me, not like conviction, like how Kenneth would want to put it, how some individuals are driven by the conviction rather than the principles. And that pride has continuously died out of where people pride themselves in principles. So how do we revamp that? How do we make sure that this is in workplaces? That means that we have to have a policy review. If you have a policy review where the frameworks are going to be clear. For example, I'm not going to do something and you shift me from one office to another. There is no punishment to that, or there is no effect to that. So necessarily what we need to revamp is the culture of work, the patriotism, the nationalism, knowing that I work for people, I do not work for myself. If you're working for young people, you're working for young people, not with young people. If you're working for Ugandans, you're not working with young Ugandans, but you're working with for the Ugandans. So those are certain principles that we need to revise and then bring back.
Perfect.
So when you said not like the way Kenneth put it, did you mean that I was?
No, I agreed with you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And if I did,
I would have to contrast.
All right, let's just now take the conversation to global networks. We have talked about corporate culture, and we have tried to understand how exactly, or we have painted the picture of the corporate culture. And Beatrice did a very wonderful job to try to describe for us in her submission how exactly the corporate culture is in this country. And it's her environment that it's somehow impossible to actually correct it. But then we get the idealistic argumentation of Jimmy and Denise, who submit very well on how exactly we can improve this, but also get the view of Jawia, who paints the picture of how exactly the corporate culture is, of which, in my opinion, I think there's a lot of work that our country has to go through, because these disparities will continue happening, and once it reaches the brim, there's only one thing that will sprout out, and that is conflict. And we don't want to reach that point of conflict. So let us just now take the conversation to global networks. You know, with these appointments come certain privileges. Privileges in terms of getting networks globally. That means if at all Jawia today is appointed the CEO of, let's say,
Uganda Airlines.
yes,
We're immediately proudly associated.
yeah, he's appointed the CEO of Uganda Airlines.
I manifest.
Definitely, Jawia will go ahead and appoint Beatrice, Denise, Jimmy, the
Legal
people that
advisor,
he knows.
literature, environmental specialist.
Yeah, and you just know that the people that are going to be in that are people of his stature. And that then sidelines very many poor Ugandans who are not in the calibers of the Beatrice, the Denise, and Jimmy. Yeah, now that is just a simple picture. So, Jimmy, global networks, what's your say?
I think now to global networks, I think as citizens of this country, we need to begin looking at people beyond our differences, beyond what makes us distinct. But you should look at the aspect of that person being humane, what makes them a human. That's what you should look at. Some people may argue otherwise, that it's not realistic. It's very much possible. So I think saying that when you get appointed, you're going to just get a chain of buddies. That's why my argument is about institutions. If institutions can allow to operate the right way, that there should be a clear format of appointment, that people should go through a clear process that is genuine and sincere. That is absolutely everything. The Constitution clearly indicates these particular things through the articles and everything, Article 21 and 22, about discrimination and everything. So if those particular issues can be respected, people are appointed on merit. And we can have a bunch of people coming through from various parts of the country, competing for jobs equally, that they have all gone to school, then let's see the best candidate for that job. Not just because you're my friend that I should appoint you. No, it shouldn't be like that. It should be out of merit. What are your capabilities? What can you offer? That should be the reason why you're appointed, not because you are my friend. So I don't think we should argue in regards to things being because you're my friend, then you deserve it. I think it should be the aspect of what can you offer? Are you good at it? How qualified are you? And so the argumentation still goes back to the education and the economics, everything there. Because if you have a chain of friends of an elite class, if you're from the elite class, most likely your friends are from the elite class, and people that are not in the elite class do not get this chance. So how do you enable those people that are more of in the peasantry and bourgeoisie part of the economy and part of the country able to attain these particular leverages that the country presents, that is enabling them attain an education. Education should actually be a right. A decent education should be every Ugandan's right to attain a decent education. Then we can get them into the money economy. And if these things are done, then the social networking itself may not actually help, but people are counted on merit because you have the papers, you're the best candidate for the job. We know you, we know you. That doesn't really work here. If you're going to keep appointing people on the basis of we know you, then you're going to have people that cannot question the authority. They're just there to appease the authority. They cannot say you're being corrupt, that is wrong, you're going against the law because they're afraid that you're going to fire them. But if people are appointed on a process of vetting and they go there to serve citizens, we're going to have more service delivery. There's going to be more accountability because it's a vetting committee, you come here on merit and people, you can be made accountable. But if you're appointed on the basis of a friend, even bringing it into table of accountability may be a little difficult. You cannot question your boss, you cannot question the authority because you're afraid of your job. But if people go there on merit, you can question them, ask them, what have you done with the funds? What are you doing? So it all brings back to the end goal of service delivery. But I think the education and then getting people in the money economy is very important if we're going to achieve any of that.
All right.
I have a question for him. Can I ask him a question?
Sure.
Okay, sure.
So what if we're in a scenario where the elite has merit as well as the bourgeoisie, or probably whatever class you want to put whoever in? What if both of them come? Two individuals, same CV, both of them have attained UCE, USCE, PLE, they have gone to the university, they both have the same degree. Probably their CGPA could be at the same level, if we're talking merit, of course. 3.7, 3.74, 5. You get? They have the same merit, everything. Both of them have merit and both of them have brought. But you can only, because the position is director. Director is one. I'm just giving a scenario. The director is one. So both of them have come. So if we're being honest, from our point of as human beings, who are you going to choose?
Because now, in such a scenario, I will just say, in such a scenario, when people have sort of the same education and everything, it's always something that will make one other person different. We are not the same. And that one special thing that makes you different should be the basis of your merit.
That's why they say this will be to your additional advantage,
Yeah.
15 years of experience.
Yeah. That should be the basis that that should be the basis.
So now what if the additional was the fact that I know you?
No,
that can't be the basis.
Well,
That can't be the basis.
That can be the
And yet,
basis.
not I know you as not I know you as Jimmy. I know you as this person who can work, this person who can wake up very early in the morning. Or
Well,
this
that's
person
what
who
network
can,
is for.
Kenneth, I think we should not narrow argumentation to who we know. I think we should narrow our argumentation on how the constitution. You guys are lawyers.
Yes. That's why. That's why.
We should make this realistic that the argumentation shouldn't be on personal levels. But how do you create those opportunities for everyone to thrive? Everyone to have a piece of the national cake.
But also, honestly, if your OB is to come and someone you don't know and they have the same qualifications, who are you going to give?
Oh, that's now tight.
Now that's a come back to the issue of corporate culture. But nonetheless, let's just now wrap up the conversation because we're almost running out of time. Denise, submit on the issue of global networking, and then we can also listen from Beatrice and Jawia, then we can have our concluding remarks.
Well, on the issue of global networks, I think global networks are very important when they're not for self-growth. You see, if you're in a CEO position and probably you're leading the NSSF and you have opportunities that open up to a global network, or you're able to be connected with other individuals of the same value, you use it to grow the same entity. You use it, probably you're going to be able to mentor other young individuals who could use the same network to access the kind of benefits that come with the networks. That's why I think global networks become very important. Probably right now you're going to ask NSSF, do you have a program for young people? Or you're going to ask any other parastatal, do you have a program for young people? And that's what the networks are for. Because if you do not have like a network, if you do not have a network, there is no way you can help young people. But if you come to NSSF and they tell you, oh no, we have a program probably with World Bank and we think we could help you link up with them and we can see how we can proceed then with this kind of project. But if the networks are meant to be yours as the person in position or in that position as a CEO, it doesn't benefit anyone else. So global networks are necessarily used to grow capacity of other individuals. And the reason why I talk for young people, it's because I'm a youth, but then 78% of other people that then you're representing are young people. So these networks should be used for capacity building to make sure that it benefits the country, but even at the end of it all, it's used for growth within any other aspect of either the company, the parastatal, but even Uganda as large.
All right. Kenneth,
Yes.
speaking of the issue of global networks, that you see most CEOs in this country are from the western part of Uganda, and with these global networks definitely comes opportunities. And those opportunities are often then zeroed down still to that particular part of the country. What is your say?
Well, when it comes to global networks, I think once you provide with an opportunity, you
Yes,
get
it.
it. You who is in that position, you who has positioned yourself in that capacity, in whatever capacity you are, I don't think there should be an argument on why you are there. You get it? Because the fact is you have been positioned and the opportunity has come to you. If it was a different scenario, they would be asking a different question. Because if a different person was in that position and that same opportunity came, you would still be exposed to different forms of effectiveness. For example, let me say they're going to be like the Westerners. What does he have to offer? You get it? They're going to bring him an opportunity. You know what we want? We want to go to Karamoja and we want to put up, let me say, wells and something to kind of reduce on the form of drought and all that environmental things. They're going to pick him all the way from that side. And they're probably going to say, what can you add? You can be like, you know what? I know a couple of people who have cows. We can first take our cows there. You know, we breed, they expand, we pick ours, we take back, we leave whatever is there. That could be his idea. You're going to bring someone from the east. He's going to be like, you know what? I think we can take some groundnuts that side because it could help with the food insecurity. You bring someone from West Nile, can be like, I think we can take some tobacco there because we can get some money from it. We develop. You get. So it doesn't mean. I don't think it depends on who is inside. I think it depends on the opportunity that has come and how the opportunity has been enforced.
Okay.
Because some people, of course, we know some people will be corrupt and show that come and finished. But then it's all on the enforcement of that opportunity.
Okay. Beatrice, future outlook.
Future outlook. I don't want to disturb you so much, Mr. Drake. You've hosted us enough. I don't know what you guys are doing. But I think global network is the answer we've been looking for. Why Westerners are dominating CEO positions. That is the answer.
Yeah.
Global network. They're in a network where they know how to get where they are getting, and the network is favoring them.
They know who to call.
Is the answer. I don't know why you guys are
They know who to call.
Slumbering and saying, I don't want to start suggesting things that the country will not do here.
Yeah.
I'm simply saying what is going on in the country, and people can use that information the way they want. Global network is the reason, primarily, why these Westerners are dominating, because they know Ogu, no Ogu, no Ogu, no. That's why they can say Gamba, no Ogu, no Oria, and then you help me out. So probably what we can use that factor of global network to help us.
How can we make it more equitable then? Not just...
Yes. Now, I feel like that's more important for them to know. My suggestion, people don't. It is not for them to use or whatever. But how global network would help now diverse is a divergent mind. The person who is having this network. Like, for example, in fact, it's going to depend on the owner of the network. If this person is the one that is the big boss, but his buyer is tribalistic, you guys have to suffer.
So then...
And if it is...
That's what I say. It depends on the person who is in that position.
And if the person that is on that position is divergent,
Like Jimmy.
wow, you will see culture day in that company. You know? So what is the solution here?
But I think global networks, if it's a tower, if it's a tower, I think global networks is here.
It's primary the reason
It's
why.
on top, so
Because
the
they know
problem
each other
could be
network.
down here.
There's,
'Cause if
these
you remove that
education
break-
things they come after. You know, they even started asking themselves after giving you the job. Where did you start? Just because they know you network. So maybe the only thing is divergency. Teach our children. If you want to be the Jesus of this situation, I'm promising you it's hard. Teach your children. Grow them into divergent people. It's hard.
Expose them.
Yes, because they're going to go to school and that Muganda will tell them, "Kwe, you are Choli guys." And he'll be like, "Choli guys." Divergence is hard. To coexist is hard. Because people come from
I think it's difficult for someone to even tell you such a thing.
I think moderator. I think Ugandans have lived in cohesion. People have intermarried. Acholis have married Uganda.
Yeah,
This cohesion.
we're just talking about that percentage. They are. People when talk about a statement in law, the exceptions to principles. So we talk about principle. You don't hurry up with the exception. It is there. You wait for it.
But you cannot.
After, be like, yes,
But you cannot begin
otherwise,
saying.
we intermarry.
You cannot begin.
Otherwise,
You cannot begin propagating.
we're talking about the problem. Like what problem? That there is a way that is causing a problem. There is like we're not saying it is what it is exactly. We're just saying at this moment that could be the problem, or in fact that is the problem. In that way, we're not saying that we've not seen solutions of unity. No, we have seen solutions. We have so many. What are they called? What are these money groups? Circles that people do. Actual cultural circles too. People do that, but we're just saying, that's this CEO point. The global networking is because of the tribalistic. Just that there is that factor. We're not saying people are not united. People were from Ginger, many tribes. Just recently, this weekend, they were united. So there's unity in Uganda. We're just saying, just for now, there's a tribalistic aspect in global networking.
Hey, this weekend.
This weekend there was unity in Uganda, all tribes from everywhere. Yeah, so.
Right, okay, let's just try and wrap up it. I've never seen the controversial person. But let me start with the most controversial person on the show to get your concluding remarks. And parting shot.
Okay, I think
Their time will come.
no, not really actually. But being educated is the only thing I'm seeing Ugandans have. Everyone wants to now be educated, and I can see it. Those days, even parents were not educated people. Me, I'm concluding with we are going in a better. The future is bright. Yeah, Ugandans are serious with education, and that's it. Big thing about a CEO right now, don't read, expose your mind, and I think Ugandans are doing that.
Okay.
So yeah, the future is bright.
The future is bright.
The future is bright.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Jawia, conclusion.
Well, in my conclusion, the future could be bright, yes. Definitely the future could be bright. However, we have to consider being human beings also in whatsoever we do. And you should have a heart like one of God's. You're not in it for your self betterment per se. You should be in it to grow people, because definitely you're going to have more joy enjoying in your reaping your fruit, or getting a fruit out of something that all of you have gotten as a community. So you should be human and consider everybody, consider their defects, consider their abilities and disabilities, and surely conviction should not be put before principle.
Jimmy, concluding remarks.
I have liked this debate. I think now for me, I want to draw into sort of solutions. I think as a country, we need to move back to having a very holistic education. That education should be a national right, that everyone can access quality education. That stems back to having people have money so that they can send their children to good schools. But I also think that the question, why are CEO offices dominated by people from the West? I want the audience not to misunderstand that. It's going to look like people from the West are actually the ones doing well. I have friends from the West who are doing really bad. The people from the West that are suffering. So poverty generally in this country is a general concern, not an exception for West or probably Central. It's a general concern. So as a country, we need to begin addressing issues of poverty, and we should begin looking at ourselves as Ugandans above our tribe, above our religion, above our political affiliation. Because if we continue with this sort of argumentation and people feel they're being marginalized, it can lead to violence. Trust me, I do not want to live in a violent state. I want peace, and peace starts with respect for each other and acceptance of what we are in our differences, that over the time we have lived in this country together. So let us create platforms that every Ugandan can access the needs of life and they can thrive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's listen in from Denise, concluding remarks.
Well, one is that we need to advocate for young people to be included in every position, not only right from the CEO positions, but the entire job market. We necessarily need the energy of young people, the innovative ways, the creativity of young people. But then the second thing is that the government needs to recognize the importance of things like nationalism, patriotism in terms of a corporate culture, or in terms of instilling values that Ugandans that have died out in the Ugandan workplace. So, but then three, the kind of education like we have all talked about, it needs to be equitable, accessible to every Ugandan, and make sure that UPE, USE, after then, what next? So we need to create an avenue for every individual to sort of access the skills, the mentorship, and the entire exposure that every Ugandan needs to compete for a job at any level. Let it not only be CEO, but any other job in the job market. Ugandans need those skills. What is that addition that then they are bringing on? So we need to advocate for where young people are included and not marginalized, like I feel, and to make sure that every service works for us.
All right, thank you. You've heard it there from the young people. It's been a very interesting and thrilling debate. Personally, I feel very humbled to have hosted all of you today. It's been
Beatrice.
wonderful. And I say thank you to Jimmy, Obbo, thank you to Ayebare, Denise, Jawia, and Beatrice. It's been wonderful. My name is Douglas Onen. I've been your host for today. See you next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye. Take care.